Hi, Nirothambi Pillay here, author of the book How to Build a Property Portfolio That Pays You an Income Every Month, and founder of the award-winning investment property advisory firm, Investment Rise. Hey, let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever wished you could get advance notice about a prospective property hotspot almost before everybody else did? Sort of like a way of cheating in some way, so you don't have to go through data, spreadsheets, graphs. I mean, really, who wants to do all that stuff anyway, right? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how I get advance notice about prospective property hotspots and how you can too. But first, let me tell you how this all came about. I first started investing back in 2002, so 16 years ago. At the time, I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just a young kid, fresh out of uni, and I knew that the Sydney market, though, was approaching its peak. Prices were not really affordable for the average person, rents didn't come anywhere near covering the mortgage, and there was lots of talk about interest rate rises. So for me, the only thing I understood was that investing in Sydney at that time, expecting growth over the next few years, didn't make a lot of sense. But I knew I had to do something, right? I mean, I couldn't just keep my money in the bank and expect to get ahead financially. So I just figured that I would find another market to invest in, because in my head, just because the Sydney market had stopped growing didn't mean that there wouldn't be other markets around Australia that couldn't grow in the future as well. So I started doing my research, but the question was, well, where do you start and how do you even do your research? Well, to be honest, I didn't really know. So I spent all my time, doing my research, but also reading books and attending courses and doing everything I possibly could. And then I went and bought a property all the way over in WA. At the time, the people who I spoke to about this thought I was well and truly bonkers, and they told me that in no uncertain terms. Yet, they were stunned to see I doubled my money in 18 months. Look, to be honest with you, I was too. I was like, that actually worked. I couldn't believe my first investment property decision had worked out so well. But to be real and to be honest with you, although I'd done all the research, and yes, I'd spent so much time educating myself, that first investment success was really a case of dumb luck. I mean, I couldn't replicate my success, at least not consistently after that. I mean, sure, some of my investments after that made money, but others lost money. And it just really frustrated me. I mean, there was clearly a hole in my investment strategy. Plus, worse, I just got sick and tired of trawling through data on the Australian Bureau of Statistics websites, studying population movements, looking at graphs and spreadsheets and all of that. I just figured there had to be a better way. I mean, I really struggled to believe that the most successful property investors in Australia spent all their time trawling through data. It just didn't make any sense to me. That was when I decided to get myself a mentor. And although it took me a while, I was very grateful to have found a successful property investor who'd made money over a number of years across different markets, but also in different property cycles. So he understood how to make money, not just in a boom market, but also in a flat market. And he taught me so much, including a powerful 3-step property investing system that has allowed me to have almost complete certainty about my financial future, but it's also allowed me to help so many other people invest successfully in property. But I just remember one night sitting down with him and I said, look, as one of the richest men in Australia, do you get advance notice about property hotspots before everybody else? He looked at me and smiled and he said, yes, Nero, I do, but it's not what you think. I was like, what do you mean? He said, the trick is to find others who have already done the research for you and then copy what they're doing for free. I was like, who's going to let me copy their research for free? Well, he then went through the 3 categories of organizations that he looks at to piggyback off. Number 1 was billion-dollar retailers. Think Costco. Think Bunnings. Westfield. You get the idea, right? Major players. Why? Because these major players have so much on the line. They have done their research, particularly about a growing population. And a growing population is what you want to take advantage of because, as I'm sure you understand, a growing population is one of the key requirements for price growth in property. Now, it's not the only criteria, mind you, but it is a very, very important one. I mean, you're not going to make money through investing in an area for growth if you're investing in an area that has got a population that's declining, right? I'm sure that makes sense. So he said, follow the big guys. He said the second advantage of following the big guys is they've not only done their research about where the population is growing, because that's where they want to serve that population, but they have also done their research about the socio-economic status of the people in that area. I mean, for example, Westfield is not going to build a new $1 billion Westfield Centre in the middle of an area where it's a very low socio-economic status, because people can't afford their goods and retailers will suffer. So they're only going to invest in areas that either have already a solid socio-economic status or a rising socio-economic status. So he said, follow the big guys. He said the second group that he piggybacks off, which he said is good but not perfect, is the government. Right? I mean, the government has access to all sorts of data, and they actually employ people to analyze all this data about population movement, and then based on that is where they're putting all their infrastructure, roads, train lines, airports, hospitals even, etc. So he said, follow what the government is doing. And then he said the third group is almost like a sleeping giant. He said there's multiple, but the key thing is look at industries that cater towards a growing population. And he said that one of the biggest ones, that was a sleeping giant that he referred to, was childcare. Why? Well, today it's about a $12 billion industry in Australia. And yet people are not taking advantage of looking at where childcare centres are opening up. Because when there's a childcare centre opening up, it's because there's a growing population and there's a demand, especially from young families. And so what he then said is, look, the pro tip is don't just rely on any one of these three markers. Instead, what you want to do is find out where all of it is happening. He said all that information is readily available. I mean, it is readily available online today. I mean, you can go to the Bunnings website and literally see where their new stores are opening up. You can go to the government websites and see where all the infrastructure projects are happening. Right? So it's very, very easy today. It's certainly easier today than it's ever been to find out where all these categories of organizations are putting their money to serve an expanding population. Now, let me caution you though. Right? Yes, you can do all this research very, very quickly, and it is the equivalent of, once you understand everything that I just shared with you, it is the equivalent of getting advance notice about a prospective property hotspot before almost everybody else does, who is just relying on what's happening in the news, dare I say. So, however, just because a criteria has all of these things happening, like new infrastructure, expansion into childcare, and maybe a $1 billion retail opening, doesn't necessarily mean that prices will rise immediately. Yes, it's a good area, but remember, it's about getting advance notice about a prospective property hotspot. The key word here is prospective. There's no guarantees prices are going to rise just because all that is happening, right? So what you need to then do is look at the area itself and see, well, is it now the time to enter the market? Right? So what I would be doing, this is my recommendation, is to apply this sort of secret system to be able to get advanced notice about prospective hotspots. And then I have this watch list about areas that I'm looking at, right, that have the infrastructure, they've got the expansion into childcare, they've got potentially $1 billion retailers opening up that recently have opened up. And then I check to see, well, what's the affordability of the market, what's the undersupply to oversupply ratio, because although that may be a great market, now might not be the time to enter. But it's on my watch list. And so I regularly check in with that market to see, well, what is the affordability status of the area? What is the undersupply situation? And when I see those markers hit relative criteria that I'm looking for and I'm happy with, that's when then I might pull the trigger and enter one or more of those hotspots. Right? So that's how you first of all identify prospective property hotspots and gets advance notice before so many other people cotton onto it. And then secondly, that you then look at when is the best time to enter the market, because there's no point buying in a market that has all these markers that I mentioned to you with the childcare expansion, infrastructure, education expansion, $1 billion retailers, right? And then waiting 5 years to get growth. That doesn't make any sense. So yes, this is a great way to get advanced notice about prospective property hotspots, but timing the market is a completely different discussion. So I really hope this quick video has helped you sort of understand how someone like me, who is essentially someone who's just looking at property all the time, identifies property hotspots, gets almost the equivalent of advance notice of prospective property hotspots, and then keeps a watch list. Let me know what you think. Do you think this kind of system could help you identify good quality markets to invest in? And what do you do? Do you have something else, a sneaky technique that you use to identify prospective property hotspots? Let me know your thoughts in the comments fields below. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.